Good evening and welcome to the weekly news brief on HSTV News. I hope we find you well this beautiful Friday evening. I am Francisca Msheche and these are the headlines. Zanu PF succession wars worsen as youth take aim on Vice President Constantino Chiwenga. Chamisa gives SADC credit but demands more. Civil society opposition scattered as heavy-headed state intensify blitz. Chivhayo enjoys last laugh as Chimombe Mbofu suffer and secret on Zig strength released. Join me for these and other stories in greater detail after this break. Welcome back to the weekly news brief. Let's get to the news in greater detail. Internal fissures within the Zanu PF ruling party appear to be widening over the thorny succession issue, now nearing its climax 3 years ahead of a potentially bruising elective Congress. Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, whom many believe is President Emerson Mnangagwa's heir apparent, could face his sternest test to leadership. Chengeto Chidi followed the story.
The comedy of errors continues in Zanu PF, where President Emerson Mnangagwa is expected to serve his last term of office, but his party, or at least some members of his party, are pushing to make him stay on, ostensibly against his wishes. Political analysts have dismissed this as a script of sorts coming to life via sponsored structures and individuals pushing an agenda that the president is an unwilling hostage of power. It started with songs of endorsements and slogans for longevity. By a strong denial which is not very clear in its import or meaning, but just enough to continue the debate flowing. A measure of threat is added in the "I am a trained soldier."
Besides being a soldier, I am a trained lawyer. I'm a constitutionalist. I want our party, our leadership, our people to be constitutionalists. We must abide by the provisions of our constitution to the letter. Kana nguwe kuti uinde inoinde.
This would have silenced debate on succession in the party and focused the youth on national development, but not at all. In the same meeting, resolutions were made to break the constitutional order. The youth declared they wanted Mnangagwa to rule beyond what the constitution currently provides.
Baba, mutishona vari kuti, baba tinoshuvira kuti, deno machengetwa na Mwari, muchitonga mazadzikisa Vision 2030.
Declarations at the youth in Daba were a direct build-up from another meeting where Machakayere appeared to be taunting Vice President Constantino Chiwenga and telling him to stay as a deputy and quash his dreams of taking the head from the emperor's head. Even the South African opposition, through EFF leader Julius Malema, is worried that Chiwenga has been or is being emasculated in the battle to succeed or not to succeed Mnangagwa.
The most powerful military man in Zimbabwe now. They've weakened him.
Zanu PF steps into uncharted territory. The prospect of a peaceful transfer of power, which for some will mean loss of power and access to the gravy train. New leader will bring in his or her own people and dump those of the old. This is what many dreaded and is being fought left, right and center. Chengeto Chidi, HSTV News, Zanu PF headquarters.
Former opposition leader Nelson Chamisa has given credit to SADC for making bold announcements on the Zimbabwe 2023 general elections. For the first time, the SADC Observer Mission did not endorse polls, angering the Zanu PF-led government. In an interview with a South African station, Chamisa said although a lot needed to be done by SADC, the report produced by the bloc was an important step.
Well, there has been an effort. I mean, for the first time, SADC came to the conclusion that the election itself was irregular, a first and historical position, because there's always been papering over, findings and solidarity of the different governments and leaderships. But what we have seen in the last election, the previous election, has been endorsed by SADC, but this one, SADC came out and said this election was not proper, and I think that effort must be appreciated. And of course, the African Union and COMESA and other international bodies. So yes, enough needs to be done, but I think the effort has to be appreciated. Comrade Malema is correct to say Zimbabweans have a duty to make sure that the situation is dealt with. We need freedom. We need democracy. We need free and fair elections. We need accountability of government. We need to deal with the tyranny that we have. For the past years, decades of tyranny, decades of autocracy, we thought that by having Mr. Mugabe going out or exiting the political stage, we were having a new dispensation, but we've seen that it has been a new deception. We have seen that we have actually jumped from a frying pan into the fire. The situation has gotten worse. Dictatorship is in the schools. Authoritarianism is consolidated, and that is where we find ourselves.
Ahead of the SADC summit, Zimbabwean authorities have cracked down on opposition and civil society leaders who are viewed as critical of President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government. So far, police have arrested over 100 critics, while shadowy groups have been issuing threats against any demonstrations planned or perceived. Our reporter Tanisha Gawa gives us the story.
In what many believe is paranoia coupled with brutality, the state has been accused of using its muscle to silence opposition forces, close down civil space, and rule by fear ahead of the SADC summit, which will be held in Zimbabwe in the next week. State security agents and other shadowy groups are allegedly being used to intensify surveillance and intimidation on opposition figures and civil society leaders. Crisis Coalition in Zimbabwe is one such organization which found itself in the eye of the storm after a known man besieged their offices and left threatening notes.
Facing threats from unknown people, we discovered a note upon arrival at the crisis offices, a note which is threatening the crisis leadership and making specific reference.
Last week, police pulled out 4 human rights activists from a Victoria Falls-bound flight and denied they have been arrested, only to release them 8 hours after the alleged abduction, which had been captured on camera. The 3, who include Namatai Kwekweza, Robson Chere, Samuel Gwezi, were later released to the police, bruised and battered from hours of alleged torture and assault at the hands of suspected state agents. Regardless of evidence showing that Kwekweza, who is charged with disorderly conduct at the magistrate's court, was not in the country on the day of the alleged crime, she remains jailed while battling for freedom.
This person, they are accused of disorderly conduct that is alleged to have happened on the 27th of June, because we were insisting that there are issues that the state must clarify first before these accused persons are even entertained by the court.
The clampdown on civil society started with a warning from President Emmerson Mnangagwa when he warned during a burial at Heroes Acre that he would come after those he referred to as Mesha Mkono.
I'm fully aware the law will take its course without fear or favor. Atidi Mesha Mkono to the Sasanga.
The statements by the president, who fears the opposition could embarrass him in front of his peers over an allegedly stolen 2023 presidential poll, sparked the arrest of over 120 members of the civil society and opposition, most of whom remain in remand prison and at the mercy of a judiciary that is stingy when it comes to granting bail. Those arrested include CCC leader Jameson Timber and 76 others who are now over 50 days in remand prison. Jacob Ngarivume and Kevin Nyamakanga are also battling for freedom, while Job Sikala is reportedly in hiding. Reporting for HSTV News, Tanisha Gawa, Harare.
Wicknell Chivhayo has beat the potentially damaging allegations of money laundering and corruption surrounding the procurement process at the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, and instead turned the heat on his former business partners Moses Mpofu and Mike Chimombe. Chivhayo is having the last laugh while his erstwhile colleagues languish in remand prison. Nomo has the full story.
What started as a whistleblower scoop of the hair, which if followed properly could have opened a can of worms in the procurement systems in Zimbabwe and spelled the downfall of Wicknell Chivhayo, has now come down to just two men engaged in fight after fight for their precious freedom. For now, the scoreline reads Moses Mpofu and Mike Chimombe 0, Wicknell 5 going into halftime. The two, arrested more than a month ago, are still knocking the doors to try and win the right to sleep in the comfort of their beds in the mansions. This Thursday, High Court Judge Justice Pisrai Kwenda reserved judgment on the bail application of the two as it relates to the 7 million United States dollar gold scheme fraud. The judge promised to deliver a ruling at the least by 19 August. The duo were denied bail by magistrate Marewana Zogofa on grounds that they were a flight risk and likely to interfere with the state witness. The magistrate also said the duo may cause public disorder ahead of the SADC summit which Zimbabwe is hosting next week. If they get bail, the two will not be released as they face another hurdle, a 9.2 million corruption allegation which involves the seat of Harare.
What had happened was that we had applied for Mike Chimombe, the second accused. We had challenged his placement on remand. So the ruling was there today. It was with regards to the recent allegations, the fresh ones. Unfortunately, the magistrate ruled otherwise, and he is now on remand. That case has been postponed to 6 September.
The alleged fraudulent deal involving Zeki, Chivhayo and a South African company have been forgotten. Even the threats by a parliamentary portfolio committee to invite the Electoral Management Board to appear before it, forgotten. It appears Chivhayo is untouchable after all. Reporting for HSTV News and Current Affairs, Nomo Maurao.
Zimbabwe, facing a serious food crisis owing to an El Nino-induced drought, has been on the roll constructing new roads and expensive villas to accommodate heads of state from the SADC region. Palm trees, traffic lights and pavements have been installed at times during the middle of the night. Gaddafi Wells gives us the story.
Harare streets have undergone a stunning transformation ahead of the SADC summit next week. But is this all just a facade? The roads we once knew riddled with potholes are no longer the same.
The road past Westgate, extending to the new Parliament building, is nothing but a miracle for many young Zimbabweans below the age of 20 years. Many of them have never witnessed such beauty and splendor. Even more, seeing such a smooth surface devoid of potholes. This is a result of months of investments into the road network in the heart of the city, which was rigged by potholes and years of neglect in the hands of a government that has an appetite for luxuries, with a bigger taste in big cars. Palm trees, street lights and pavers now beautify the roads and their islands ahead of a 2-day SADC summit next week.
Our distinguished guests, it is my privilege once again to welcome you all to this opening to traffic of the completed 5-kilometer section of Nemakonde Way, a stretch of road starting from the junction with 2nd Street Extension to the junction on Harare Drive.
In the midst of a drought and biting poverty, the government has chosen to host SADC leaders to such splendor and lavish surroundings. Many who are expected to be housed in expensive villas just for a few days or even more, just hours before flying back to their countries. Government, however, says it has not done the roads to appease SADC leaders, but generally to improve the quality of infrastructure. The evidence, however, that the roads are to entice the SADC leaders are too stake to ignore. Most of them lead to and from the venues the summit will be held. Just a small detour from those roads will lead a motorist into the normal portals of North. Even the Zanu PF Youth League leader, Tino Machakaire, who is also a minister in Mnangagwa's government, acknowledged this.
The Youth League wishes to commend you for scheduling top-notch preparations for the forthcoming 44th summit of heads of states and government.
Economist Gift Mugano says the manner in which government funded the projects was unsustainable and had left the country deep in debt. In his view, the projects have a potential of sinking the zig and worse, pushing the economy deeper into the abyss.
In his budget, the Minister of Finance, by his own admission, which he presented in the midterm review, he also indicated that they're going to be financing the debt using domestic resources and use instruments. So it's the same. We are going on the same path. How do you increase your national debt or public debt by 2 billion in a year? What is going to happen now this year in terms of debt on editorial front? When you look at the expenditure which you are doing on infrastructure, big expenditures to please SADC, right? And also drought. So this $2 billion is not a debt which is caused by the SADC. This is last year.
Regardless of the reasons why the roads, streetlights, and palm trees were planted, the SADC summit has changed the landscape of Harare. It will never be the same again. Reporting for HSTV News, Gaddafi Wells, Harare.
Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education Amon Murira is looking to education as the ultimate savior of the ailing Zimbabwean economy. He was speaking to journalists at a graduation ceremony held at Harare Polytechnic College, where hundreds were kept after completing diplomas and certificates in various disciplines. Owing to a failing economy, many of the graduates will turn to vendors or leave the country in search for greener pastures.
The state of a nation is a reflection of the knowledge of its people and the skills of its people. Therefore, if we focus on our education, and seriously so when it's well configured in terms of what we have now done as Education 5.0, we will be able to make the food that we need. We will be able to grow the food that we need.
The local currency Z continues to hold its own against major currencies on the official market in what economists believe is a controlled exchange rate, which is being demystified on the black market. President Emmerson Mnangagwa, however, believes that his Z is the silver bullet, which has the mojo to silence the critics.
As well as a steady growth in other sectors such as mining, tourism, and ICT, among others. Pasure hapo, currency yetu tikangoita yoswasangiwa. Haicharemi, tochaka imwe yoswasangiwa. Toisa imwe yoswasangiwa. Katrigai, tiswasangiwa aswasangiwa.
But again, what do they want to do? They are praying that they want to push the rate to be at 13. Why are you not stabilizing it at 22 or at 18 or at 20 if it is where the rate is? Because that's where the market wants it to be. Why do you want to push it down? Why don't you allow it to find its settling place that it can function? Then you can see exporters releasing their money, which they are holding in their accounts, into the market. which exporter is going to release their money in their account to a rate of government of 13 when the black market is 27? So again, that 50 million is going to go up in smoke because it will be taken again by agents who have access to center of power at a lower rate of 13, and they go into the black market and make a fortune.
Zanu PF is unhappy that EFF leader Julius Malema called on SADC to be tough on the ruling party and Zimbabwe. Party spokesperson Christopher Mtwanga went after Malema during an hour-long press conference at the party headquarters. He also went after former opposition leader Nelson Chamisa, who has been staying away from political party business since resigning from CCC.
The Zimbabwean youth must rise, because that nonsense will never come to an end as long as there is no unity of purpose against the tyranny, against the suppression of political wishes of Zimbabweans. So ourselves at Pan-African Parliament, at the AU, at SADC, we have to have a political will to speak for the people of Zimbabwe. When it comes from us, it will have more weight than when it comes from Europe. Why? Because we're brothers and sisters. They will know it's a friendly fire. But SADC, AU, South Africa, they are failing Zimbabweans because it's a bruise-up. It's friendship. It's brother, leader, brother. When they meet, brother. And then when you ask what is the resolution, no one has taken any resolution. So you need a clear position from SADC which gives the timelines that by this time this should have happened.
Julius Malema emanates from. He posits as a pseudo-revolutionary and a cryptic intellectual. He never properly went to school. And he propounds big theories about how Zimbabwe should be run, as if it is his own country. At 43 years of age, he is no longer a youth. Who is he from South Africa to try to tell the youths of Zimbabwe who should be their ruler? Malema pakatipo payama. Chamisa has never tried to visit any of the lithium mines. He never makes a diversion to go and see the marvel which has happened on the sidelines, on the sides of the highway which he drives. Why? Because he never wishes anything good from his country. All he has is got a singular pursuit for power at State House. It blinds him completely from trying to be aware, to notice the success which is hitting like lightning into his eyes. So what does he do? They try to scupper the image. They try to tarnish the image of Zimbabwe and scupper the prospect of Zimbabwe hosting a SADC summit by introducing extraneous issues which are not on the agenda of SADC, which SADC do not entertain, which SADC has refused to entertain. He wants to introduce them, this time by trying to organize diversionary demonstrations, calling for the organizing of diversionary demonstrations. So it won't work this time.
Government spent close to 40 million United States dollars in the purchase of 450 Ford Rangers ahead of the SADC summit, which will crown President Emerson Mnangagwa its chairman. The vehicles in for the summit feel safe. Our reporter Ruvarashe Moyo gives us the story.
Poorly paid police officers will this coming week be cruising around the city and other places in top of range 4x4s as President Emerson Mnangagwa's government went for broke to please fellow SADC heads of states who come to Zimbabwe in the next week. Mnangagwa's government poured close to 36 million United States dollars to purchase 450 double-cab Ford Ranger vehicles for the police, who themselves are struggling to put food on the table. The vehicles were commissioned by Vice President Kembo Mohadi, who just before cutting the ribbon issued a stern warning against protesters, real or imagined, ahead of the next week's SADC summit.
Those that want to cause mayhem in this country will never be tolerated. I thus call upon the citizenry to abide by the laws of the land and shun disorder in any form or guise. As the police, I exhort you to remain watchful and maintain the peace and security that we currently are enjoying.
The vice president, who once stepped down over a sex scandal, said the state was aware of the alleged rogue elements who were allegedly itching to disrupt the SADC summit through protests. In the past week, government intensified its crackdown on civil society, resulting in the arrest movie style of pro-democracy campaigners who includes Namatai Kwekweza, Robson Cheres, Samuel Gwenzi, and Transform Zimbabwe leader Jacob Ngarivume.
It is, however, sad to note that while we are on the correct course, building Zimbabwe for prosperity, there are some elements among us itching to disrupt such progress.
The vehicles appeared as instruments to equip police to rein in on citizens and keep them in check as the party of leaders flow undisrupted. This was clear as the Minister of Home Affairs Kazembe joined the bandwagon of threats mimicking Vice President Constantino Chiwenga's infamous warning.
As such, in the wake of the country hosting the 44th SADC Summit, the nation is rest assured that the prevailing peace and tranquility will be maintained, and indeed the event will be a success, Honorable Vice President. Kune baba vangorora vachirota Honorable Vice President kuti kune zvavanongofunga kuita zviroto Honorable Vice President. Vakomana nevasikana vamunoona vakapfeka mauniform vana vamwe vasipo, they will make sure that peace prevails in this country.
The big boys will be in town next week, and the whole country has been put on notice. Any funny move will be punished. Police have been capacitated, roads fixed, suspected troublemakers put in jail, and villas built. It's all systems go. Reporting for HSTV News and Current Affairs, Ruvarashe Moyo.
Self-styled leader of the main opposition in parliament, Sengezo Chivhayo, is all but silent over allegations of abductions, torture and arrest of civil society leaders and opposition members ahead of the SADC summit. Chivhayo enjoys the support of Zanu PF, took over control of opposition CCC through a series of court actions and parliamentary recalls before establishing himself as the ultimate leader of the opposition. Now to our feature of the week. In this week's feature, we look at the sad story of the Cold Storage Commission, which was once a potentially blue-chip company, but was run down and with hopes and dreams of many who used to work for it. Our Mashonaland West correspondent, Chaf Picasso, together with Tanisha Gawa, followed the story.
Failed parastatals have left with them a tale of broken dreams and families, especially as most of their livelihoods were cut short in loss of earnings. One such parastatal, which used to be the envy of many job seekers, is the fallen Cold Storage Commission, which shut down, leaving hundreds of its former workers jobless and dreams shattered. After serving the company for more than 19 years, one of the workers who rose through the ranks was left counting his losses.
17 January 1990. Ndakapinda ndi department inonzi stockyards department. Ndiri pen cleaner. Andichiti pen cleaner ndisai cleaner matanga. Chizobva ipapo ndi promotions akazenga kuwanikawo. Was promoted. I worked for a year to HR. From there, that's when the platform did record. From there, I went back to Stockyards. At that time, I was now the supervisor of the department. I worked there for 15 years. 15 years there. Being the supervisor. Later on, we were transferred to Harare. I can't remember the year. 2012, yes, 2012. We just worked for takashanda kwenguva diki maendero takaenda kuHarare, takaenda chinzizi kwakwine Botswana deal mombe tataenda kupuwa mombe neBotswana tichiuraya. Saka kuHarare vacho vazhinji vacho vanga ma-old ages, saka takaenda kuHarare kuti takushanda kuHarare. Saka takashanda kuHarare just for 3 months. Zvazanzizvo vanhu vakuitwa lay off, vakumboenda kumba unogara kumba kuda kuti zvisina kumira zvakanaka, mombe dzadzisawo. Saka later on vanhu takamboenda kumba, takazodzoka takusenza sema-security guards. 2015 ndipo tikazoi that program yekumisa vanhu mabasa mumacompanies. We were just unfortunate. We were given the termination letters. From that time, we came back here. We were never paid anything. Even the 3 months salary, which had been saved by my workmate.
Normally, when people lose their jobs due to termination, they are paid severance packages and benefits, which sets them on a new path. This never happened for the loyal workers whose hard work had over the years made CSC the #1 meat brand in the country and abroad. They were forced to walk away empty-handed, carrying nothing but empty promises, which until today breaks their spirits.
Pakubuda hatina mbokuwa kana even a single cent. Takambonzi madete nyakwana. Takambonzi temporarily itai from 2008 2012 somewhere there. Tichinzora itombokuita imuri on temporary basis makamirira mari but hatina chatakawana. Kozoita mari demutualization yakapiwa mamakambani patakabviswa zvichinzi agriculture takubviswa kubva kuold motor kuenda kumashi. Mari yeold motor yese hatina chatakawana. All of a sudden niko zvinezvi ndopatakunzwa kuti taimbonzi mari yakaenda kumashi. Asi nokuda kwema-working things ari kuitika iko zvinezvi maprocess akunzwa kuti mari yemachesi mamwe acho akatenga atovigwa kuSouth Africa. But to our surprise hapana kana munhu wani wakavictimizwa, hapana wakadini, isu mari hatina chatakawana kana even a single cent. Saka dambudziko mberi ripo ndorokuti kurarama chako chako kwakudisa. And mukatarisa vanhu big number iri kupera kufa nokuda kwestress.
Time paita time since vanga vagara vane outstanding vane dzimwe mari dzavaenda vachiti pamwe kuwa $50 pamwe $100 kusvikirawo pasisina mari yakuita sei, pasisina mari yakuuya. Zvaafecta zvandikanganisa a lot. Unenge une mhuri especially vana vanga vachidiki vaenda kuzvikoro kuita sei kuma-universities mari unenge usina. Saka any source of income yekuti at least ndito something yekuti ndikwanise kurarama papasina. Kuti papaturunguito zvongoti we just think kuti takaonawo dzimba dzedu zvimwe one thing zvatinongotenda mupostrich kamani.
Saka patani tiri kufambira nhau dzedu dzemari dzedu mabacklog salaries chigara pasina vamwe vashandi kuti tichionesana kuti toita sei nhau yemari idzi. Saka mari dzacho tiri kungonzwa kuti pane mari ingakaunganidzwa kunzi tichapiwa, asi kuti tizive kuti tichapiwa uchauya here kana kuti hakuna mari iyoyo. Apa hatitomborina vazhinji vedu vapera kufa, tiri kuvauraya newestress. Vari kushaya pokutangira, kunyange kana mumba akaza rikabuda rikaduka kudai macha ndotanga nei uye mhuri yangu ndichairitira nei. Ndo upenyu hwatiri kurarama mukati menguva ino. Kozvinozvi tine mari dzatiri kutarisira kuti ini semushandi ndaishandira court ndakamiswa termination contract. Munhu unopiwa a little lump sum yemari yaunopiwa, wapiwa mari iyoyo yaunenge wapiwa
inenge ichingo yakambomira kunguva iyo, asi hatina kwanisa kuwana mari iyoyo. Ndichoenda zvangu mberi, asi ndataura mupfupi kuti munhu mushanda akamiswa ane mari yaanodi yaanotasakunzi aipiwa mari achibva aenda. Saka mari kana ichinge isina kubuda kureva kuti anenge achiri pabasa. Kana yaura $300 pamwedzi, which is $300 iyo pamwedzi times 12, yobudisa little lump sum of money, then yoizonzi times 9 years from 2015 to 2024 parishina. Ndo zviri mukati mehana yangu kuti tinge chokwaniswa mari dzedu dzatakashandira dzemabhekuru salary.
Promises by government that the failed CSC would be resuscitated have remained nothing but just empty promises which continue to haunt those who served the company wholeheartedly, only to be betrayed by a poor governance structure that felled a potential blue-chip establishment. That which is owed to the workers will never be paid back to them if the company which holds vast assets in Chinhoyi is not revived.
Mari dzedu isu dziri kuCSC dzakawanda. Totanga nebacklog yokusashanda yeye. Anditi mumwe nomumwe akatowekerwa chipepa chake chokuti anotoziva kutoti inini mari yangu iri kuCSC mari yakati yandaifana kunge ndichihora monthly isina kuuya. Because isu we kept on coming tichiti takamirira mari as time was going and the bill was growing up as well. But hapana chatakazowana. Kozoita mari yegratuity yataifanenge takapiwa mumakambani akaita sana GMB navamwe vakapiwa vanga vari under AMA vakapiwa isu tikatozokupai pakupedzisira. Nanhasi hapana chatakapiwa. Kozoita iyo yepension chaiyo yemacontributions epension kana yelamsam yokunzi munhu ari kuenda hapana. Saka mari idzodzo mukatarisa imari dzokuti munhu you could invest somehow somewhere zvokuti ukwanise kurarama iwe nemhuri kana nevazukuru kana nei.
Mari zvino kuti ndizive kuti mari yangu yanga iri pa nearly $300 a month mari yandaiona. Saka takamiswa isu on termination contract. Ndichiri kuHarare branch, ndakatransfer kubva paChinhoyi branch kuenda kuHarare branch. Saka tanomiswa ikoko hatinai kupiwa 3 months notice yedu yokunzi mamiswa basa uye chazokushedzai. 3 months notice iyo hatinai kupiwa mabacklog salaries edu. Tine mari dzakawanda dzairange almost around kuma $15,000 equivalent yangu 1:1.
Somewhere tichinzora itombokuitai muri on temporal basis makamirira mari hatina chatakawana. Kozoita mari yedemutualization yakapiwa mamakambani patakabviswa zvichinzi veagriculture taakubviswa kubva kuold motor kuenda kumashi. Mari yeold motor yese hatina chatakawana. All of a sudden niko zvinezvi ndopatakunzwa kuti taimbonzi mari yakaenda kumashi. Asi nokuda kwemaworking things ari kuitika iko zvinezvi maprocess akunzwa kuti mari yamachesi mamwe acho akatenga atovigwa kuSouth Africa. But to our surprise hapana kana munhu wani wakavictimizwa, hapana wakadini. Isu mari hatina chatakawana kana even a single cent. Saka dambudziko mberi ripo ndorokuti kurarama chako chako kwakunetsa. And mukatarisa vanhu big number iri kupera kufa nokuda kwestress. Kuti tichinyatsa kuziva kuti iyo government pachezvayo, because this company was a parastatal kana kuti is a parastatal. Government yacho havina kana painomboadresa nezvazvo kana kuti kudini. Takambonzi kwaitwa boosted beef ikanzi ndiye achatora nhingi take over madebts ese nechinyi nezvese zvinenge zvikwereti zveCSC. But chatangoona ndechoti iye haana chakambobudisa kana sende sokutaura kwaita kuti angati ndiye achatibhadhara. Chake chaandoita ndekuti ari kutokolekta mari yemarentals ari kubva kuCSC. Nekutoti dei kuri kuti mari yemarentals iyo yainge yakauya maareas edu emasara dei takapedza kare. But hapana kana wani chinombonzi chiri kuuya kana kuti chaanombonzi iye ari kuita kana kuti hatitombotomuzivi kana kuti kudini. Saka ipapo ndopari kunetsa nokuda kuti as time goes on iko zvinezvi kaizvi ngati hafu yevanhu vakaenda hazvina kuapply pachinhu chete. Hafu yevanhu vakaenda kunezvi vazhinji vacho hafu ndo yakatofa, hafu ndo yasara. Kurati we are all going, asi hapana chiri kubuda. But government yacho handisi kuti papapa vari kuzvitora sei kana kuti vari kudini. nokuda kuti pension yacho kana ikanzi inoenda kuIPEC kana ikanzi inoenda kupi handeti. The issue iripo ndekuti vanofunga kuti kana zvitora makore akadai so vanhu vari kurarama sei nei iyo vasina takabva pakambani paine backlog yemasalaries ari more than 2 years.
In a country where people's aspirations and interests are supposed to be expressed in parliament, the August House appears to have ignored the plight of its citizens, especially since most of these companies die at the hands of a looting political elite. Legislators worry more about cars, accept government loans while neglecting those who dedicated their lives to Zisco Steel, Zupco, NRZ, and CSC, among others, which have been run to the ground.
This is not political, because kana ivo vacho vepolitics mapoliticians anditi vandopuwa mari ndilombotoona ma MP vari kunzi vanodhimanda mota dzakatoti dzoda kuenza nedzana minister this and that kureva kuti they are working on mari kuti vawane. Isu hatisi kuda mari yekuti tinzi tingopiwa, yatakashanda zvayo tipiwe iyoyo chete handiti maona. Ivo kana ivo vamiriri vedu chavokuparliament vanotadza here kungoti chimbomirai kuti tengera mota mupe vanhu. It's a thing you hear once off. Tongozopindawo mupension inenge ichicontributa vamwe tichienda.
What is happening with the CSC story? You know, during my campaign, one of the things that I spoke about was CSC. It was the center and heartbeat of Chinhoyi in terms of economics, together with Golden Copy. So I wanted to have a first-hand experience and explore ways to help them get their justice, because justice delayed is justice denied. A lot of them have passed on, and they died as paupers, having spent 40, 50 years working for CSC. So it is worrying, and it is my hope that whoever comes in as the investor or central government will take it upon them to give them justice. In terms of their remedies, they have options. I spoke to them about some of the options. I can be involved, others I cannot be involved directly, because I'm being a legislator, I may be conflicted, but I'm sure they will explore ways to find justice, including petitioning Parliament.
The Chinhoyi CSC branch was one of its biggest. At some point, it was the source of the best meat for many African countries. The company as a whole, once a major foreign currency earner, through its quota supplies for meat to the European Union. Regardless of this reputation, it has left behind bitter souls. You find kune zvimbo kana kumwe kunopiwa kunzi izvo zvedrought kana kuti kudini handiti. I've been reading a certain article last year. Itonzi vamwe matop officials emapato ndo vakutora zvinhu zviya vachidini vachinyima vanhu. Zvino iwe unombovanzi kana kokuro zvakaita kuruseva vakabva kutaundi unotonzi handiye wauya apandukira musangano kana kuti kudini, asi unenge chikuchema nzara inenge ina vamwe. Kana imo muno mumataundi macho hapana chinenge chichibuda, unongotopedzera the best way is kunyarara. Manje problem is sezvakaita inini ndiri mupostori handiti. Isu timupostori hatinei nepolitics. Tongonzi vakuru vanenge vari mberi ndo vamunotungamira ndo vamunodaro, asi vakuru vacho ndo vasiri kuticheuka futi. Kuti daro tipinda taupinda mupolitics, saka takungofa takanyarara takadaro, hapana kumwe kwatinoenda.
Saka tingati makore amunawo pakusvika pari zvino awanda zvakadini?
Iko this ndade 71 years okuzvarwa handiti. 71 years.
Reva kuti mari yokutara pari zvino, so mungadai muchitoenjoya nemari
dei takatoenjoya kana kuti takaita zvimwe zvinhu kana dei yakatopera kare, because mukatarisa from 60 it's almost about 9 to 10 years tiri papension, asi hatisadapo one single cent. Takaenda kupension majigisi avo achita 10 cents chake, handina kana kupuwa musi ndapedza basa, anapuwa kana 10 cents yokuti majigisi yonitengere muzukuru majigisi. I can give you an example yomumwe wataiva naye pano pachinoyo ainzi Marapara. Munhu iyeye akachinjwa kubva kumarondera, marondera yabhuroka uyai kuChinhoyi. kureva kuti akaparadzaniswa nemhuri yake vouya vasenzera kuno kwacho vachisvika havana kubvata 2 months nyaya yekusaura yabva yatanga.
The closure of CSC, among other parastatals, is just a microcosm of corruption, poor management, and even worse, political patronage and self-serving at the expense of the majority. It's the legacy of the past 44 years which has become a cycle. Take from the white colonial farmers, give to ruling party colleagues, loot, run down, and abandon. Then blame sanctions. Reporting for HSTV News, Tanisha Gawa in Chinhoyi.
Now we turn to sport with Tanisha Gawa.
Thank you, Francie, and good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining me on HSTV Sport. I am Tanisha Gawa, and I bring you the best, the worst, and the near misses on the sporting scene. Join me after this break for the world of sport. Zimbabwe, hungry for sporting glory, were banking on sprint duo of Tapiwa Nashe Makarau and Makanaka Ishe Charamba, who put up a spirited performance in the Paris Olympics 200-meter final last night, but fell far short of the medals, with Botswana's Letsile Tebogo stealing the show to take gold. Makarau was the best, placed of the two Zimbabweans, finishing 6th in 20 minutes 10 seconds, while Charamba came in last in a time of 20 minutes 53 seconds. Charamba ran faster in the semi-final, where he clocked 20 minutes 31 seconds, but was a bit slower in the final against a stellar lineup. Turning to soccer, where trouble is brewing for the ZIFA Normalization Committee, who up to now have failed to provide the nation with a home ground. The committee is currently considering 2 possible neutral venues to host Cameroon in the next month's Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. The Warriors are away to Kenya early next month in the opening Group J of the 2025 Morocco AFCON qualifiers. But the East African nation has said it will host the Warriors in Uganda at the Nelson Mandela National Stadium, since they, just like Zimbabwe, don't have a CAF-certified stadium to host international matches. Zimbabwe Golf is set to officially launch the 2024 All-Africa Golf Team Championship at Bulawayo Golf Club next week. The country will host this year's edition of the continental competition from October 27 to November 2, with about 20 countries expected to take part in the event. Initially, the event was supposed to take place in Seychelles, but they surrendered the right due to disruptive weather patterns in that country, and Zimbabwe decided to step to the plate. Next Friday, Zimbabwe Golf will launch the event as well as stage the Legacy Golf Tournament. That's all from me. Now back to you, Francie.
A special thanks going out to Tanisha Gawa for giving us our sports news. Now turning to the video of the week, President Emmerson Mnangagwa tells opponents who are unhappy with the Zanu PF party regalia to go hang.
Let us demonstrate as Zanu PF youth that we are united in our regalia. Don't be afraid to put on your Zanu PF regalia and therefore
This was the weekly news brief with me, Francisca Msheche. Don't forget to press the subscribe button so that we keep giving you news. Allow me to wish you an amazing long holiday and a cozy weekend from here at HSTV and the crew behind the scenes. Good night.
Chokwadi pasi pano